So the question you always need to ask yourself is, why should my prospect choose me over my competition? It's very simple, right? With the answer not being about the product, but about why they should buy from you personally. See, what happens is, a very good example of this would be Samsung, right? Samsung has always talked about its features, right? We have 16 gigahertz. We have the Snapdragon and whatnot, and they're going to talk about the chip, and they're not going to talk about the camera in terms of megapixels. Apple never talked about all of that. Apple always chose a very simple strategy. Hey, the people who buy Apple are the ones who change the game. So they created an aspirational value for the products that they're selling. That in case you want to be amazing, you should buy Apple. A very interesting learning that I read about, in sales just probably a couple of days back, was that everyone wants to be a better version of themselves by buying a product, no matter which product you're selling, right? And that's exactly what Apple kind of did for you. That in case you buy an Apple, right, a Mithali with an Apple versus a Mithali without an Apple, the Mithali with an Apple does significantly better in life, right? So that is the aspirational value that Apple creates. And and if you think about it, it's actually true. If you ask yourself, would I be better off with an Apple? Yes, you will be better off with an Apple. And that is why when we're talking about Apple, we are not talking about a generic phone, right? If someone asks you, hey, do you have a phone? You will, when you're talking to Apple users, they'll be like, yeah, I own an Apple. Why are they saying that they own an Apple, right? They're not talking about the fruit, because the Apple itself as a brand has created an aspirational value for its products, right? They are making users feel that they are better versions of themselves by owning these products. Now you might say, Shawrya, but is this true for all kinds of products? I'm not sure about all kinds of products, but again, most of the products, right? Another very good example to look at it would be PepsiCo. So back in 1960s, PepsiCo was losing the race against Coke, right? Coke had a monopoly in this market. They had a 80%, north of 80% market share, and Pepsi was again dying very small. And Coke had created, they were literally selling at 2x the price of Pepsi, and still they had the monopoly. Now, the interesting part about these kind of products is that they're exactly the same, right? I mean, Pepsi and Coke, there's not a lot of difference in terms of taste, in terms of how the product looks like, in terms of the formula of how the drink is made, right? Very similar. So Pepsi was facing an issue with respect to their brand identity, right? Coke talked about American values. Coke talked about, this is what it means to kind of be an American, right? So they used to have those kind of ads where a Santa Claus is drinking Coca-Cola. So talking about how everyone who lives in America, or everyone who's socialized and, is living in the country, should be drinking Coca-Cola because it's part of the culture. Now, PepsiCo had to come up with something to break this hegemony, right? So what PepsiCo did is that they built a campaign where they talked about how PepsiCo is for the new generation, right? And those kind of ads are still very popular, right? If you look at the Pepsi campaigns, Change the Game, right? Change the Game is a new one, but basically they launched this campaign called the Pepsi Generation, where they suggested that everyone who's young, youthful, and is trying to break the status quo drinks Pepsi. They don't drink the Coke. So what started to happen is that all the youngsters, again, because Pepsi was a more affordable product, they could buy it slightly. I mean, of course, there was not a lot of difference, but still, they could buy Pepsi, and at the same time, they could claim that they're actually different from the rest of the people. They don't stand for the same kind of values that old people do, right? They're different in terms of how they look at life and how they look at things. So again, what was Pepsi trying to do? Pepsi was trying to make its users feel that they are the better version of themselves by buying Pepsi. That I stand for the new generation, and hence I drink Pepsi. Or if I buy a bottle of Pepsi, people will think that I am a part of the new generation.